Hello, this is Hellbent. Welcome back to the third part for tutorial 3 in the AutoHotkey Gui tutorial series. We're just going to continue on, so let me reset my stopwatch. If you'd like to get a copy of this, let me know in the comments, and if I get enough comments for it, I'll make a video showing you where you can get a copy of it. It's just like 50 lines of code. Oh, okay, 75 lines, I'll make a paste bin for it. Okay, anyways, before I get into the thing, all the time I get asked about what script editor I use. I use the site for AutoHotkey. Now, a couple of months ago, the site where you can get a copy of this was down, but I checked yesterday or the day before, and it appears to be back up again. So if you'd like to get a copy of the script editor, and as you've seen me do these tutorials, you see that it tells me the options and everything like that, and it highlights different things, highlights the syntax and everything like that. It's wonderful to work with. You can work with just a blank notepad, but I've been using this for about a year now, and I really wouldn't want to go back to using a blank notepad or Notepad++ or something like that. I really like this. If you're doing AutoHotkey tutorial, if you're doing AutoHotkey scripting, I really suggest you get this. And it does look like the site's back up. If it's not, well, you can just use Notepad or whatever else. Okay, so the last one we did was uppercase, lowercase. We are going to continue on, and let me see from my notes. Okay, we did tab, spacing, uppercase, lowercase, edit numbers only. Okay, now, like I've said before in a lot of my tutorials, I'm not trying to tell you how to use this stuff. I'm just trying to present you with the knowledge of how to do different things, and I even show you how to do things that I never use. That I actually, in order for me to do these tutorials, in order for me to be thorough with them, I actually have to go out and learn how to do. So that way I can show you how to use them, so you don't have to go through the pain in the ass of trying to figure it out for yourself. Alright? So, with that in mind, this next thing is one of those things that I doubt that I would ever have a use for it, but you might. So, with that in mind, let's do it. So what we're going to be looking at is how to make it so that way a user can only enter numbers. They can't enter anything except for numbers. If they try to type a letter character, it's going to say, nope, can't do that. Now, you might, for example, you might have an edit field where you're asking for a phone number. So obviously, you don't want a bunch of letters in it. So that might be a reason why you do this. So in our edit field, or in our edit options, what we're going to do is we're just going to type in number. Is it number? Yeah, I think it's just number. Okay, so we type in number in our options for our edit. We save those changes. We run it. And now I can type numbers. But as soon as I try to type a character or a letter, it says that. Alright, I can go back to typing numbers. If I try to type a letter, nope, can't do it. Okay, so this would work well with when you put in something like limit, and then let's say 8, and then I think that's fine, yeah. And we'll get rid of this name. So we have a thing that says, hey, I want your phone number. Put in your phone number. So 555. Oh. Okay, apparently number only wouldn't work with that. So let's do it 7. So they don't care if there's a space. They're gonna do it later on. So all they want is the 7-digit number. 555 1 2 3 4. If they try to enter more, it won't let them. And if they try to type a letter, it won't let them. So there you go. That's how you can make it so they can only enter numbers and limit it. Moving on. Very easy stuff, right? Okay. Displaying a variable in a edit box. Okay, this is really simple stuff. What we need to do first is we need to create a variable. I'm going to call my variable name, and I am going to say it is Hellbent. Let me make sure all my other options are okay. Okay, so I have a variable. I've assigned it a value. And when the program starts running, I want it to display that. In order for it to display it, so we've seen before where if I type in something, it gets displayed, right? But there's going to be other cases where I don't want to have a, for example, with my GUI, if I build up a really big, lots very complicated GUI, I might not want to have a wall of text right in here in my controls, right? Instead, what I can do is in the control, I can have a call to a variable, and at this variable, I can have a wall of text, and I can put this variable anywhere, right? It doesn't have to be in my GUI layout, right? So this makes it easier for me to play around with that. So to display that variable, all I have to do is, like with other things that we've done before, is just wrap the variable's name. In this case, the variable's name is name in percent marks, and that's it. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. There we go. Okay, so there we didn't type in Hellbent, we typed in the variable's name and displayed the contents of that variable. All right, easy stuff. So we can move on. Okay, so that was displaying a variable in an edit box. Next is assigning a, okay, so I said this before, but we are going to call this a control. Okay, so this is a control, and what we're going to do is we're going to give this control a name. And so we're going to assign this control to a variable. And the way we do that is very much the same way we did with our label, like the way we called to our label. It's very similar to that. Instead of the G, though, we put a V and then the name of the variable that we're going to call this. Let's see. So, okay, now I think I said this at the beginning. You're going to want to, as your GUI gets bigger and more complicated, and you add more and more things to it, you really have to be careful with the way that you name things. You really want them to make sense, so that way you can find them later on. Because if you start having buttons and you just name them button 1, button 2, button 3, button 4, button 163, button 167, you're not going to have an idea of what they do. But if you had gone in the beginning and actually named it something that makes sense, something that has to do with what that button's function is, you would be able to find it a lot easier and work with it a lot easier. The same thing goes with the variables. You're going to want to name it something that makes sense and be as specific as possible. Okay? I'm not going to do that, though, because it takes time to do that. So I'm just going to call this edit 1. So I've named it edit 1, which is a bad name most of the time, unless that really makes sense. So anyways, now I've assigned a variable to this control. So later on, we're going to be able to do things with this. So that's how we assign a variable to our edit, and we will move on. And you'll understand how we use this in a minute. So once again, it's V followed by the name of the variable. Okay, next. I don't know why, but when I did my lesson plan, usually what I want to do is have the easiest things first, the things that I can cover the quickest, the things that don't have anything to do with anything else. I do those first, so that way I can build upon your knowledge, right? It's because some of the things that happen later on, you need to know the other things that happened before in order for it to make sense. I don't know why, but for some reason, when I look at my lesson plan, some of the things, I have some really easy things way down in the list. Like I'm going to show you how to change the background color now of your edit field, right? I mean, this is something that I should have done like third, but for some reason it's like the 20th item on my list. Okay, so anyways, the way we change the background of our edit field is much the same way as we change the background for our GUI. So for our GUI, to change its background, we type in GUI color, the lazy American way, and then the color we want it. Okay, and I never get over not typing a U in there, but whatever. I guess I've gotten used to it now. Okay, so that's how you change the background for the GUI. To change the background for your edit field is virtually the same, except it is, I mean, we can do it in the same line. I think we can do it in the same line, but I'm going to do it as a separate line. So it's very similar, GUI color, and then our comma. So this is, if we put something in this first parameter, it's for our, we would be changing this background, but we want to change this, so we just add another comma and then whatever color we want. So no, let's do red. Alright, so there we go. So like I said, it's virtually the same as changing the background for our GUI. It's just adding in that extra comma. The problem with this is you can't, okay, disclaimer, you can change, so let's say if I have multiple edit boxes, there is a way to have each individual one have their own color. But it's very complicated, and if you're doing these tutorials, chances are you're not ready for that. And I'm not going to be covering that kind of thing for a long time. Just know that it is available. You can do it. There's scripts available online. In fact, when I was looking over this yesterday, I came across this script here that actually accomplishes that very thing. So as you can see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different edit fields, and you can individually change the color of all of them. But it's complicated. It's a lot of code to do that. So don't worry about it. Just know that if you change the background for one edit field, it's going to change it for all of them. But that's changing the edit field background. Next is submitting values. Now earlier I had said that I had recorded this earlier and I got to a point where I came into a problem. This is the point where I had that problem. So let me get rid of some things that I don't need. I'm going to change this away from being default button. I'm going to keep that there though. Do I need a button? No, I don't need a button. No, I don't need a button. I just need a label. Okay, I'm going to get rid of that whole button. If I need a button later, I can add another button. Okay, so submitting. Okay, so yeah, so let's say I have my edit field. Let me rerun this so that way it's okay, there we go. So let's say I have my edit field here, and I actually, when somebody types something in, I actually want that to go into the variable that I've assigned for this. Right? There's a couple of ways that we can do this, but the simplest way is what we're going to do. What we're going to do is, in addition to having this attached to a variable, we're also going to have it go to a label. So we're going to type in G, go to label, and we're going to create a label. And once again, this is bad to do it like these kind of names, but whatever. So I have a variable, so my edit is attached to a variable, and I'm going to call to a label. Now I just need to go to that, create that label. Okay, and in it I need my return just to get it out of the way. Okay, so like I said, the person's typing away, and we want it to, whatever they type into it, we want it to get stored within that variable, because right now it's not doing that. It doesn't automatically do that. The way we do get it to do that is we come into this label that we've attached it to, and we say GUI, comma, submit, and then comma. Okay, I'm going to pause here. Now what would happen right now is, if we left it like this, as they're adding in their character, they're typing in whatever, as soon as they type something in, it's going to actually cause this GUI to get buried under. It's going to basically get minimized, right? There is a lot of programming reasons why you would want to have that, but for us, because our GUI, we don't want that. We're actually working with our GUI, so we definitely don't want it to get buried every single time we type in a character. So to prevent that from happening, all we have to do is right here, we type in no hide. Boom. Now we can type it in and it stays. Now let me see. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how this is going to work. So basically we're going to run this program afterwards, and it's going to, every single time we type a character, it's going to submit that character into the value of that variable, and we're going to display that by having a message box, and we're going to display the value that is going to be stored in our edit1 variable. Okay, so right now, as we stand, we have our edit control. It's assigned to a variable, and it's also assigned to a label. So every single time that we type something, it's going to go into this label, and it's going to submit that. It's going to submit whatever we did there into that variable. And if we run it, every single time we type a character, we'll get a message box with the value of our. Okay. Now what if we didn't want it to be like this? What if we didn't want it to be after every character? We wanted to wait until the person actually pressed a specific key, like the return key or something like that. So what we're going to do is, some of this stuff I have never covered before, so don't worry too much. I will eventually cover the thing that I'm going to be doing now in a later tutorial in much more detail. But you can, if you're doing this right now with your own programs, you can just basically copy what I'm doing, right? Even if you don't really fully understand it, you'll have a launch point to learning about what it does and how to use it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable, and I'm just going to call this variable name 22. So the variable's name is name 22. I know it's a bad name. I'm just trying to be quick about this. Okay, and I'm going to say that this equals the key state. So it's going to get the key state of a specific key that I'm going to specify. So I'm going to say, hey, I want to know if a specific key is being pressed or not. And it is a Boolean true or false kind of deal. So 0 would mean I'm not pressing it. A 1 would mean that I am pressing it. So I'm going to say, hey, I want you to tell me, is that key in a 0 state or a 1 state? Right? And now I'm going to specify what that key is inside of brackets and inside of quotes. So what I want is the enter key. So basically I'm going to say, as soon as I press a key up here, as soon as I type something in, it's going to go into this label, and it's going to come to this line here, and it's going to say get the key state for enter. Okay? And then what I'm going to have is an if statement that says if the value of that variable, or the value that we've now stored into that variable, if it equals 1, so if name 22 equals, now we can do does it equal true, or we can do does it equal 1. Either way works. We're going to do true. So is the enter key pressed? So I'm asking, is the enter key pressed? If it is pressed, then that's when we're going to have our message box. So rather than the message box popping up every single time we type a key, it's going to wait for us to press the enter key. There we go. So I'm typing, and then I press enter, and there it is. There's our message box with the value of those. Now obviously the message box isn't meant for you to actually do things with it. It's just for you to see that this thing's working. So you could have it run some other kind of function or operation as soon as you press that. It could do a mathematical operation, something like that, right? It doesn't necessarily need to be a message box. In fact, message box is probably, I don't know if you'd ever have a reason to do it as a message box. But anyways, the message box helps us see that it's working and see what's going on. Okay, so that is how we submit values from when we type something in and we store it into the variable. Let me see, do I have something quick that I can do? No. Okay, looks like we got one more topic to do, and it looks like it's going to be a long one, so I'm going to do it in its own video pretty much, and then we'll rehash some other things. Okay, so I'll see you on the next one. You know what? No, we're going to do it now. We're going to do it now because like I said before, I'm doing all the mini tutorials, so there's no point in me having the mini tutorial and the main tutorial having the exact same thing in it. Alright? I mean, that's kind of weird. Okay, so darn, I need a cigarette and I'm not going to be able to go for a cigarette. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is edit and updating that. Okay, so what we're going to do is how am I going to explain this? Let me create a sorry, bear with me. It'll be faster if I don't talk while I'm trying to set this up. Okay, let's see. Actually, you know what? I can do a button. Button will be, I think, fine. Okay. So we've seen how we can store the value. We can take the value that we put into here and store it into a variable. But what if we want to do it another way where we actually want to take, so let's say that, I mean, there's so many things that we can do with this. It's hard to pick what to do. I just want to make it something super simple for you to kind of understand what is going on. So let's say that this button, when we press this button, what we're going to get it to do is we're going to get it actually display the value of a variable. Now, this variable could have been manipulated in many ways throughout our program, and then finally we're at the end. It's done doing all of its manipulations to it, blah, 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 and we want to finally output the value that we've gotten. We don't want it to be in a message box. We want it to be in our edit field. And we press this button and boom, it gets popped up there. This is how you do it. I hope I did that some justice. Okay, so I'm gonna have to copy a lot from my cheat sheet that I have, because I haven't done something like this in a while. There's some syntax that it's been a while. Okay, so I've created a variable. Now this is going to be, we're going to pretend that this is our variable, our thing, our output after a whole bunch of processes. So we don't actually know that it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It could be a multiple of different things that have changed throughout the course of us running our program and performing other options. Okay, next we have edit. Yeah, that's good. Add button, press me 1, 2, 3. Why did I have so many buttons? Okay, sorry, I need to understand what my notes, the program that I have in my notes, because there's no sense in me going through and creating a new program when I've already gone through the process before of coming up with a good example. So let me see if I can understand my example. Here, why don't you have a look at it while I'm doing it too, so you have something to see. Okay, so this is what I'm looking at. So all I have to do is figure out why did I make it 3 buttons, what those 3 buttons are doing, and my syntax for my last thing. Okay, so as you can see, I have my edit. I have the variable. Actually, you know what? This variable has been commented out. I don't even know why. So maybe input box, my edit. Oh, okay. Okay, so I'm not actually going to use that. I'm going to use an input box. I think message box. Okay. Okay, I see what it is. I see what my program's trying to do. Button. Okay, so I need 3 buttons. Because each button is going to do a different thing. Alright, I'm going to change them. I'm going to give them names. Input. I didn't have them named like this before. It just said press me 2, press me 3. But I'm going to change them to what they're actually doing. So button 2, message box. And then the last one is okay. Okay, so we have 3 buttons, and now what I need to have is 3 labels. And I think I can get rid of, I'm going to comment out this, and I am going to get rid of this. Okay. Because actually I can get rid of this. I don't need it anymore. So I need 3 labels, and we'll create them right now. So to keep this fast, I'm going to make them super dumb. Button 1, button 2, button 3, and then I'm going to create the labels. Okay, and each button is going to do something. So the first one, if I press this button, it's going to go to an input box, if I remember correctly. Input box, then we need a variable. Input 1. So it's going to get stored in a variable called input 1. And then I don't want a title on it, so I'll put the tab character. And our message is type something. So it doesn't really matter what they type. This is just what's going to get stored into that variable. And is that the variable? No, I didn't use that variable. Okay, if I press the number 2, no, I'm wrong. I actually do want to use the variable that I have up here. So I'm going to use the variable. So whatever I type in here is going to get stored in the variable that I'm using for my control. Next, I'm going to pop up a message box if I press button 2, and it's going to display in a message box the value that is stored in that variable. And last, what we're actually going to do is we're going to take the thing that we put into the input box and update our GUI with that. So like I said, normally we've done a whole big process. We press the button and then we output in our edit box the value that we've gotten. And in fact, this stopwatch right here, that's kind of what it's doing. It's taking variables, adding them together, and then displaying it on my screen, except I'm using it in the text. I'm using a text, just a normal text control rather than an edit control. But it's basically the same thing. It's updating the value of a variable that's assigned to it. Okay? So that's all that's all we're going to be doing. We're going to be updating the value and then displaying it, just the same way I did for this. Okay, and the way we do that is we type in the command, and I'll go into this in more detail in a later tutorial, because there's a lot of things that you're going to want to know with this command. So, for example, some of the parameters I'm just going to leave blank. Like right here, here's a parameter right here that I'm leaving blank, right? But what do you do in that? What do you use that for? Obviously, I don't have the time to go into that right now, so it'll have to wait for a later tutorial where I can concentrate on this specific command as its own hour or 2 hour long tutorial. Next, I need my variable. So this field right here, what I'm saying is what the control that I want for the next command to do, where I want this to affect is this control. So I'm saying this is the control that I want this next thing to go to, and then what do I want it to go there is basically the same thing. The information that's contained, that's stored in that variable. I know it sounds really weird like that, but oh wait, edit 1. There we go. Okay, so basically, let's see. So when I press this third button, it's going to say that I want to update the control, this control here, with the value that is stored in that variable. Okay? And like I said, I will go into this in much more detail in a later tutorial. So first, here we go. We have our edit field. We have an input box, so we're going to run through our program. We do a bunch of different things. So our input box is type something. Okay. Boom. It gets stored. It's now stored whatever we typed into that variable. Next, we're going to display that whatever stored in that variable. We're going to confirm that we did store it into it by popping up a message box. There we go. And we can see that, in fact, it did store that into it. Now what we want is for it to actually display it here. And we press update, and boom, there we go. Right? We'll change it. And then update. There you go. So that is how you, what did I call it? Edit, updating an edit box using the GUI control intro. So this is, like I said, actually I have it written here. Oh, damn, I lost the page. Oh my god, sometimes it's hard to drag things over. My mouse is getting weird. Okay. So, I even have it in my notes. So, like I said, this is just an intro to the GUI control. I always introduce new things with each tutorial. Right, things that I'm not going to be going into too much detail. But anyways, enough time. Thank you for watching. Be sure to hit that like button. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm not here to do your programming for you, but if you have questions, if you have a problem, go ahead. I'll try to answer your questions that you have. But I'm definitely not here to do your programming for you. So, I get that a lot. I get that people want me to actually do their program for them, and I'm not here for that. I just ignore those people. But if you have questions, I usually take the time to try to address questions. I have, like I said, if you'd like a copy of this program here, let me know. Just say, hey, I want a copy of the stopwatch. If I see a couple people say that, then I will make a video showing you where you can get a copy of this. So that, and I will see you on the next tutorial. I think we'll probably go into either radio buttons or checkbox, so it'll be a much quicker tutorial than this one was. This one's there was a lot of things that we needed to cover, right? And even that, there's still things that I missed out, that I left out, and the reason is because they'll make more sense once we get into the subjects that they're dealing with, right? Like if I introduce them now, it's kind of like this GUI control, right? If you don't know what this GUI control is, you're probably a little bit confused about what's going on. So some of the other things I'm going to leave, instead of putting it into this one, I'm going to leave them out, and we'll cover them as they make more sense. All right, have a good day. See you on the next one.